On the women's side, Ethiopians, their tactics were exposed. My God. Gudaf Tsegay does win the gold. The Americans disappoint in the women's 1500. Prudence Sakaduso wins the women's 800. But again, we'll talk about the Ethiopian tactics. Terrible in that race. I'm Robert Johnson, joined by my twin brother, Weldon Johnson, as well as ace staff writer Jonathan Gold, the only journalist left in the sport. He's in Nanjing, China. John doesn't like me saying the only one. Okay, the only good journalist left, let's say, John. Anyways, great World Indoors. I'm glad I got up early to watch it. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's a hectic final session. I mean, honestly, I didn't even realize the women's 800 happened because you just had final back to back, and all of these athletes are plowing through the mixed zone. And I'm focusing on like, okay, Jakob and Josh Hoey, they're there at the same time. How do I wrangle them? I'm like, wait, there's an 800 final? Oh, yeah. And then I'm like, wait, Daguma got DFL? What the hell happened? Like, I had to rewind. I watched the race, and I was like, oh, because her and her teammate decided to go out in 55. All right, that's why. Like, just baffling. Like, she was sprinting on the back straight of the first lap. Like, that is what an all-out sprint looks like at the start of a race. And I just don't think you should be all-out sprinting in the first 100 meters, or else it's going to end really badly. So anyway, we're not here. We'll talk about the women's 800 in due time. I think we have to start with the man, the myth, the legend, Jakob Ingebrigtsen. He pulls off the 1500 3K double. He's only the second man at World Indoors to ever do that. Nobody does it better. Joining Haile Gebrselassie from 1999. Also in Asia. That one was in Mebishi, Japan, I believe. And it was interesting. In the mix zone afterwards, he was asked by one of the journalists, how did it feel to follow in the footsteps of Haile? He did not like that question. I don't think he likes to view himself as following in the footsteps of anyone, because he was like, oh, wasn't that like 50 years ago? I feel like those footsteps have faded pretty badly by now. It was only 26 years ago, but it was before Jakob was born, and he's the only man, well, since he's been alive, to pull off that double.
Okay, John, there's some comments here already. We're already getting them. Bill Nye, the science guy? Wow, he's on the watching the show. He says the 1500 was a joke. I can't believe I'm going this negative right off the bat. I love Jakob, but let's be serious. The field was terrible. Stop trying to spin it into being impressive. Not his fault nobody showed up, but the race was a joke. Then he continues on in another post. If Jakob didn't double, the men's 1500 would have looked like the women's. Now, okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. Jakob did what he had to do. And I'll give the announcers credit. When this race is going on, they're saying, I think the biggest threat is Luke Hauser. And there's just, that guy's got a ferocious kick. He's done it indoors before. And I as the race went on, I kind of agreed. I mean, Neil Gorley ended up getting second, but these guys are lining up behind him, ready to try to unleash that final 100 meters. And this was Neil Gorley and Luke Hauser, not Cole Hawker. I mean, where I'm already talking about Tokyo, right? This isn't Cole Hawker and Josh Kerr. Like, those guys have just another ferocious last gear. I mean, I'm already thinking about outdoors, but indoors, you have the curves. I mean, if Jakob ran the world final outdoors, if you ran the outdoor final indoors with the 200-meter track, I still think he's going to have trouble. But he got it done. I mean, you can't criticize him what he did. He showed up. He won double golds. Like, this was what we expected, but a lot of question marks remain.
Yeah, I thought he would be more dominant because he was really good in the 3,000 at Euro Indoors, which was his second race of the weekend. And what I kind of thought was, okay, just do enough to win the 3K in Nanjing, and then the 5,000, the 1,500s where you really show, okay, I'm on another level from these guys. And he really didn't. He won the race, and I saw some people on the message board saying, oh, would Ethan Strand have beaten Jakob in the 3K last night? It's like, well, I don't think so. One, they're different kind of races, but I think Jakob probably could have gone a little faster if he needed to. But this wasn't the kind of performance tonight that I was like, oh my God, this guy's unstoppable. He's going to be a real problem outdoors. He took care of business. He does what a champion does. I don't think this was the best I've ever seen him, but he flew out and ran 3 races in 3 days. after doubling with 4 races and 4 race days 2 weeks ago in Euros, and he won both. So I don't think there's that much to complain about. Was he setting the world on fire? No, but he's double world champion. It's hard to complain.
Look, guys, you can only beat the people that are there. But yeah, if you're Cole Hawker, are you worried about this? A 150 last 800, I can't touch that? No. But why would Cole Hawker be worried? He ran 327 in the Olympic final. He probably thinks he's going to break the world record this year. Like, these guys are all extremely confident. I didn't expect him to be dominant and more dominant. You said it yesterday. I'm like, no, he's a vulnerable 1500 meter runner. That's just the way it is. 150 final 800. But I did like the way he closed this down. It was 28.8, 27.5, 27.3, 26.8. He needs to squeeze that down. I think if it's a bigger final, he's going to, if it's an outdoor final, he's going to try to do it from farther out and just do each lap a little bit faster. But I had less, I don't know. I was less worried about this in the last 100 than I was yesterday when he's facing Aragawi, because Aragawi is a better runner. But look, he won. It's interesting. It's great for the sport that he showed up. Thank you, Jakob, for showing up. Just thank you. I mean, like, I've run the post-race interviews. By the way, we have them up on YouTube through our translator and read the transcript. I don't know if it was you, John, that asked him if he's going to do Grand Slam track. He's like, no, the good thing about our sport is we can pick what we want to run. And, he didn't criticize people, but he's like, I've got what I'm focused on. But what was interesting to me was they were asking him about his speed. Have you been doing anything different to work on your speed? He's like, no, it's all about strength. It's about what you have at the end of the race. And it's just about consistency. And he just kept hammering that home. It's about consistency, whatever. I think he's pleased with his fitness. Would he have lost to somebody, one of those big kickers, a Hawker? I mean, he won by what, 0.24 today? Well, that's the hypothetical. Do I think that he'll ever win an outdoor title again? I don't think he's favored. He's not going to be I'm not going to have him as Jakob versus the field at any 1500 probably for the rest of his life. Global outdoor final. Do I think he's the pick? No. But could he win one? Yes. So it'll be fun. We'll see what happens. But it is what it is.
I mean, one thing in support of Jakob, let me drop a scenario for him to lose this race. I say something like, oh, it's a 3:38 race. You're like, oh my God, he could lose that very easily, right? I mean, if I told you before the race, the men's 1500 meter final at World is 3:38. Jakob didn't try to dominate this race like if he could. I think he probably could, after a lap, go to the front and just hammer in time trial and win this thing pretty convincingly. I don't think any of these other guys would have stayed with him, So I think he let it go the way that is not very advantageous for him and still won. So it's
correct.
Here we are.
That's a good point. I think a 3:38 pace race is where he would be vulnerable. And you've got some guys with 143 speed in there. You've got the Spaniard with the big kick. By the way, I've never seen anyone that happy to win a bronze medal. The Spanish guy, like they were telling me on the broadcast, like, watch out for this guy's sick kick. So I was like, oh, is he going to try to win it? And he was so far back, he never had a shot to win it, but he was just thrilled to medal. But Bill Nye again on the comment says, I think Jakob has a best of 15% chance, but 15% chance. I mean, there's a lot of guys that could win it. So what you put? Are you going to put anyone over 30%? You give Hawker 30%. You give Kerr 25%. You give Jakob 15%. That's 55. We're already at 70%. You give Nagus another 15%, and then you give the field 15%. So that's what makes this event so special, is you're going to have 4 or 5 guys all with like a 15 to 25, 30% chance of winning it. And it's going to be amazing. And there's going to be guys that, there's going to be 200 meters to go. And if you're a fan of one of these athletes, you're going to think they could still win it. And then one of them's not going to end up with a medal. So assuming they're all healthy and stuff like that. So a 3:38 race is not his wheelhouse. If Worlds is 3:38, we know he's not winning it, right? We know that he's not going to win that race. So I guess I didn't think about that. As a huge Jakob fan, I can't, trying to see what the margin of victory was on that screen. My eyes are getting bad, but 0.28. So, this wasn't like a lunge at the line, and I was happy with that. I think Gurley's happy. He showed up. He got the silver. And then Hauser, I mean, Mr. Indoors. This guy's won 2 NCAA mile titles, really look good in these championships and gets the bronze. So we can talk about the hypotheticals, but hey, Mr. Hobbs Kessler, if you wanted to win this thing, if you think you can beat Jakob, you should have showed up. You didn't do it. Same thing with these other guys. So we'll see outdoors.
Okay, a couple things. One, Robert, there was no Spanish guy in third. I don't know what you were talking about. That guy was like celebrating with Jakob afterwards. Was that Adrian? I think that was Adrian Bin, right? Like he got
I think it's Mariano Garcia, and he just has a great celebration. He's got the motorcycle thing that he did after he won World Indoors a couple of years ago, and I think Jakob just wanted to join him with that.
Yeah, the Spanish guy I was talking about was in the 800. I got my Spanish celebration guys confused.
Okay, so then because I woke up, it was 4:30 out here. I was like watching all the races and recap. I just see something like, okay, that's the only time I saw Mariano Garcia Romo in that race. He was second to last. Sam Prakel in 341. Prakel was just completely last, 344, non-factor. But
that's not Mario Garcia Romo. That's Mario Garcia, the world 800-meter champion from 2 years ago. I was a little bit concerned about him because he's got a sick kick in the 800. Won the world indoors in the 800, but he was no factor. So Jakob did beat. This is a 330 race, and he beat everybody. So what's there to complain about? 2 golds in 2 days. He'd never won a 1500-meter title. That was kind of crazy. Like, he's finally the 1500-meter champion. I'm like, world 1500 champion. Oh wait, yeah, right. He won the Olympics, but he never won the 15. Because look, guys, it could be a lot worse. And again, this is only indoors, but we John and I have been at this meet the last 2 times, and Jakob has been beaten in the 1500, and we still thought he had a shot outdoors. So we shouldn't think any worse of this. And I think outdoors is going to be amazing. There's some rumblings of a world record attempt at a 5,000. I don't want to say where, but I may be buying my plane tickets. And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not going to ding him too much for coming out and winning 2 gold medals. Like, is this something, like you said, is this something Cole Hawker or Josh Kerr's going to be looking at and be like, wow, can't touch that? No, but he beat everyone who showed up. Now, what I do want to ask you guys, does this result make you think of Luke Hauser any differently? Because he did not make the Olympic trials final last year, though he was a 2-time NCAA champion at Washington. We know the U.S. is overflowing with 1,500-meter talent right now. Does finishing third in this race and only 0.38 behind Jakob Ingebrigtsen in a world final, does that make you think, hey, he could be in contention to make the team this year? Or do you think the guys who made the Olympic team last year are still a cut above him?
I think one of the big 3, and when I refer to the big 3, I'm talking about the 3 guys that made the Olympics last year. I've said at the beginning of the year, one of them is not going to make the team at least. Like, the U.S. is loaded in the 1500. And I know Kessler's, had a nice indoor season, did the double, but you've got the Strands of the world. You've got Hausers of the world. You've got Nathan Green. You've got Abel Tefra of Georgetown. So any American that makes the team has a shot at a medal. That is as good as they are. And there's probably, there's 6 or 7. There's 3 guys that were clearly better than everybody else last year, but there's 3 or 4 more in the wings that aren't that far off. So does it make me think differently of him? A little bit, because he was much better here than he was at USA's. And I'm pleased to see that what I just want to see is that these guys are in a good group where they're improving. Post collegiately, it sometimes can be hard to find your footing. And you want to be in a situation where you think, okay, this person's locked in, training, and having good results, and he's clearly doing that now with Atlanta Tri Club. And
yeah, I think the challenge is going to be, one, can he get into like low 330 shape? You're probably going to need to be sub 330 shape to make the team. It doesn't mean that's going to be the winning time at the Olympic trials, the US trials, but his PB is 335, so he's got to lower that. I think he can. But also, historically, Luke Hauser has been a lot better indoors than outdoors. He's won the last 2 NCAA indoor titles. His last 2 NCAA outdoors finishes with 10th and 12th. So, yeah, I think this is a good sign for him. He's making progress, and he was right with Jakob with one, on the final turn, and then Jakob showed his class at the end. I think obviously a very encouraging result. Very interesting season. He opened up with a 4:03 at the Dr. Sanders Scorcher 2 months ago. Got smoked by 10 seconds. And I'm like, dude, how do you go from that to getting a bronze at World Indoors in 2 months? He's like, I think I was just rusty. Hadn't raced in a while, and he didn't have a great race the next week as well. I think he ran 8:06 or something in a 3K. And he said he got back to Atlanta, and I'm not sure if it was right. It might have been right after he landed, but Tommy Nohilly, his coach, picked him up at the airport, or maybe it was shortly after, and they went to this pizza place, and Tommy's just like, I know you're capable of more. Keep pushing it. Like Luke was considering shutting the season down. He was like, no. I think you're in good shape. We can do this. And then he just got into a rhythm and started racing. Got a little bit better. He was only third at USA Indoors, and now he's third in the world. So ended up very well. Can he carry this to outdoors? I think that remains to be seen. But he looked brilliant in the heats, and he ran a smart, strong race for the well-deserved bronze tonight.
Well, I mean, on the regular pod, I'll be writing up a list of the guys that skipped this meet. Kessler, Gilbertier didn't even do USAs. Let's hope you have a good outdoor season, people. Let's just hope you do, because they handed out medals, and Luke Hauser has one.
John, I'm glad you mentioned the Dr. Scorcher while this podcast is going on. I was like, I tried to pull up that race. I'm like, are we sure he didn't fall? Because I didn't watch it live, and the NBC highlights cut off a minute in the middle, and I'm like, from where he was and where he was afterwards, I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure he didn't fall. I mean, yeah, his season started out just horrifically. He runs to that, then 8:03 for 3K at New Balance, then okay, 3:56 to win a mile at Penn on the new Penn indoor track, then 3:53 to win a mile, and then USA's. Like, it just really trended in the right direction. Just shows there's something to be said. Persistence, showing up. Well done for him. But I don't think he was the most impressive American today, guys. Like, come on, are we going to get there or not?
I think his coach has been posting on here. How do you celebrate a world indoor title when you coach an athlete to a world indoor title in the 800 meters? You tune into the Let'sRun.com live show from Nanjing. So, yes, Josh Hoey is your world indoor champion in the 800 meters. It was a tight race. He was challenged by Brandon Miller at halfway. He had to work for this one. I asked Josh afterwards, because he was saying, like, I was tired that home straight. And I was like, have you felt that way in a race this season? He's like, no, I have not. And I think this was just, he's had a long string of very strong performances. He ran quite fast in the semis yesterday, 1:45.2. And I was thinking, like, oh, he looked easy. He's going to be, just destroying everyone in this final. No, I think actually maybe this whole long season of racing was really good. That fatigue might have caught up to him a little bit, but not enough to cost him the gold medal. He is your champion, 1:44. Just crazy story. This 1 year ago, no one was talking about this guy. No one had any idea. Like, his PR was still 1:47, and now he's around 1:43. He's the second fastest man in history indoors, and he's the world indoor champion.
I guess it could be the fatigue. When I was watching the race live, the whole thing to me was, I thought it was the pacing. I mean, when we had Jason Stewart on the podcast at NCAAs last week, former Kiwi and Olympian, he's like, I really think the one reason why the 800 guys are running faster is they're running much more even splits. And on the show yesterday, we took, in your recap, I was kind of making fun of you, John. I said, you were debating, a lot of these guys are front runners, Miller, Creston, Hoey. How's that going to work out? And I thought they would just sort of cede the lead to Hoey and let him lead. That did not happen. So Hoey had to kind of make sure that he got the lead at the 200. He was 24 point and then 50 point. So I was thinking, well, he had to go a little bit too fast, and then I knew at 600, he wasn't. I was wondering if he was going to break the world record, heading into this race. I was like, okay, well, the world record's out. But if you actually compare his splits to USA's, so today he was 24.6 and 50.8. I'm actually surprised by this. That's actually a little bit slower than what he ran at USA's. He was 24.7. So he did have to go a little bit harder today. So he went 24.6 at USA's. He was 24.73 and then 50.36. So he was actually faster at USA's at 400 than he was today. But I was thinking, the first 400 is a little bit too fast. But that's the problem when you have to race people and battle for the position. And I used to always sort of, you're using energy. And then Miller comes by on the third lap on the backstretch. And I thought it was smart for him to let, or right before the bell, maybe. I mean, 400. And I thought it was smart that he let Miller go. I'm like, Miller's going too fast. It's already fast. If he wants to lead, you let him lead. You've got to have a sense of pace. So I thought that was smart. And then I was shocked when Hoey came right back on him around, I think, 500 meters. And Hoey just could sense him slowing down. Is like, okay, I'm going to retake the lead. And I was thinking to myself, my number one mantra on the 800 is you have one move. So I'm like, God, is this really a move? Because he's just moving wide. I'm like, this is kind of it. He has to make this stick. And he was just enough to hold on at the end. But I think it could have been the fatigue, but I also think it's not the same. At USA's, he's kind of running a pure time trial. Today, he's going to have tactics. It's a little bit harder, when other people want to get in front. And maybe in hindsight, he could have let Creston have the lead, but then it's, I don't know. He's used to running from the front all season. It's worked. And hey, man, the guy gutted it out. And he's like, I was fatigued. And he's in the post-race interview that I ran through the subscription service. It was like, he's like, I wasn't sure quite at the end because he was so tired. And he's like, then I saw it pop up and he won. Now, John, you're the Brit here. This was a bizarre post-race interview. I'm not sure if Josh Hoey even has a college grad. He's from like Pennsylvania, but he was citing Henry V, and he's a huge Shakespeare play and Shakespeare fan. And when he was down and out, they made T-shirts inspired by Henry V called the Once More Track Club. John, please tell me you're a Shakespeare expert and a dumb Texas guy like myself explain what you mean.
With pleasure. I do enjoy my Shakespeare, and Henry V is one of my favorite plays. Definitely my favorite history play, and it's got some amazing speeches, and it's all about the 100 Years' War. Henry V going to France and waging this campaign, ultimately culminating with a underdog victory at the Battle of Agincourt on St. Crispin's Day. And that's really the key speech in that movie in that play. There's a great Kenneth Branagh movie version from 1989 that the key speech is the St. Crispin's Day speech, but the second biggest speech, another one, is once more into the breach. And I think this is when they are sacking Harfleur, maybe. And the idea is basically like, it's a tough moment for King Henry and his troops, but they're not giving up. They're going to go after it one more. So once more into the breach, and he's encouraging them to like, all right, give it one more go. And yeah, Josh said he's a Shakespeare fan, and that is a quote that sort of resonated. And that was his mantra. Because remember, the fall of 2023, no one like this. If Josh Hoey just packed up his bags and quit the sport, I don't think anyone would have blamed him. He had been going for 6 years as a professional, hadn't run faster than 147, which was his high school PB. So you'd be like, all right, he gave it a shot, but he was just like, no, I'm going to give it one more go. I'm going to give it, it's the Olympic year. And that was their mantra, once more track club. And his brother, who has the same birthday as him, Jonah, last year on their birthday, he got Josh and some of their family members these once more track club T-shirts, and it's got the quote from Henry V on the back. I thought that was pretty cool. Josh had one of them in Nanjing with him, but that was just essentially their mantra. Like, I'm going to give this one more shot, and things haven't been going my way, but I got to just buckle down and try it again. And it worked. Last year, he runs his big PB, and now a year later, he's the world indoor champion.
If you're just joining us, special live edition of the Let'sRun.com Track Talk podcast. That's Jonathan Gault and Nanjing, folks. He didn't get there for free. We need you to support the independent journalism. Join the Supporters Club today, Let'sRun.com/subscribe. This will show up in your podcast feed. You don't have to catch us live. Please do it. Look, I agree with you, John. I mean, 1 or 2 years ago, I like Hoey was a guy that, high school record holder, went pro. And I felt bad for the guy because I knew the family was well off financially. And I'm just like, what a colossal mistake they made. So like, there's no guarantee that you're going to be a great pro runner. It's not like they needed the money. Like, what a shame. This guy didn't even get to run in college. Running on a college team is so much fun. And now it's all worth it because he's the world damn champion. So, people, it's very hard. People want to know, like in the chat, like, how does this, can you run with the 141 guys? I think he can. I mean, the times are definitely slower indoors. This is one of the best indoor seasons we've ever seen. And what was crazy to me was Justin Rinaldi, when you had lunch with him, Hoey and stuff, they were saying from USA's to here, the workouts got even better. This guy's not afraid to like play it safe. So maybe sometimes you can leave your best workout, your best race in practice. Maybe the workout's a little bit too tough. But look, this guy beat Bryce Hoppel, who was fourth in the worlds. He ran the second fastest time indoors. If he's in the same type of form, if you know, regroup, there's a big break. You know, there's a lot of time between now and, you know, USA Outdoors, World Outdoors. If he's in the same type of form, I absolutely think he can run with his 141 guys. And, you know, originally I was saying, okay, Hoey's going to win World Indoors. We've got to get him in the first Grand Slam track meet in 2 weeks. Now I'm glad he's not doing it, because I think, okay, maybe he's on the other side of it. You know, instead of like 99%, he's 101%, and you don't want to be past your peak. So take a break, enjoy this one unreal season. I mean, just unreal.
Yeah. American record in the 1,000, American record, 2 American records in the 800, and now the world indoor title. So whoever's boiling tea or whistling into the microphone, you're driving me insane. I think it might be coming from Weldon, but you got to stop it because I can't focus. Robert, you're hearing this as well, right? Is people in the chat, they're not hearing this? Maybe it's just in my earphones. I don't know. Maybe I'm gaslighting myself here, but it sounds ridiculous. It's like someone's whistling into the microphone very lightly and poorly. You are right about that, him needing a break though, Robert, because I was talking, you know, again, sat down, had a very good interview with Justin Rinaldi. I think sometime next week we'll have a story on some of the information I learned there. But one of those is essentially Josh took basically no time after the outdoor season. He ran the Fifth Avenue Mile in like the second weekend of September, drives out, like takes 3 days, I think, to pack up his stuff, drive from Pennsylvania out to Flagstaff. And then he's just training in the fall, and they just keep it rolling. He really took very little time off after outdoors last year because they thought, hey, we're in good shape. Let's keep pushing. And that 352 mile they ran in December, you know, they didn't really back off or anything on that. But it's been, you know, if you look back, he raced indoors last year as well. He runs a full outdoor season, and now we're in late March of 2025. I don't think they're going to want to take off like 3 weeks and just totally reset. But I do think, you know, getting back to Flagstaff, wherever he wants to relax, taking a down week or two, and then ramping up again makes sense because he has had a very, very long season.
I muted myself to see if the noise went away in your ear, John, but we're not hearing any noise on our end.
People said they heard it. I don't know.
I had the sound coming from to one of the tabs. Maybe that was it. People said it's gone.
But Crest on silver, 0.02 behind Hoey, and then the Spanish guy was thrilled, so excited to get third. I think because in Spain maybe they get like pensions and stuff if they medal. I don't know. I mean, nothing wrong with being excited.
It's a medal. World Championship medal. Of course, he's going to be excited about it. And I think if you look at the way this race played out, we haven't talked about Brandon Miller's role in it very much because I feel like Hoey having to repass him on that third lap, maybe that was an extra thing that opened the door a little bit and made Hoey a bit vulnerable to these other guys. It submarined Brandon Miller's race. And I talked to him afterwards. I was like, hey, you went for it, man. You know, he's like, yo, I was running for gold. And I knew I didn't want to let Josh get away from me like he did at USA Indoors. And to me, what he did makes sense. Like, look, I think Josh Hoey, going into this race, I was like, Josh is probably in 142, 143 shape. Brandon Miller maybe runs 143 on his best day, but I just thought Josh was fitter. I think if you let him just get the lead and try to kick past him on the home straight, I think Josh will run away from him. So I don't mind him trying something bold and aggressive. It was already, 50 point is already pretty fast. So taking the lead at that point, clearly he couldn't hold it, but I don't fault him for taking his shot and trying to do it. And he'd been running really well. Obviously, it cost him a medal, I think. If he'd run more conservatively, I do think he would probably have gotten the silver or the bronze, but I don't fault the guy at all for going for it.
As a fan, you like to see it, but it was stupid. Hoey's already out there. You're running fast. Sit on him and see what happens. But this is what happens. Like, if you want to torpedo someone's over, this is what makes Hoey's win all the more impressive. Is he had to respond to this mid-race surge and go around because Hoey wanted to be in the front and not run the extra distance. So I was stunned when it happened. I mean, and as a sort of, if you're a casual sports fan, you're like, wow, this guy's great. It's great. But now that it didn't work, it's easy to say that was stupid. And I kind of think that, but I guess, you're running for goal. Well, you can still run for goal by being in second. I mean, Christian almost won goal by never leading a step until the finish line. So, they don't give you, they're not giving you primes. But
that's not
right.
Brandon's style. Brandon's not really a come from behind guy. He's a try to get out there and lead and run away from people guy. So, he tried to run from behind USA's and he got crushed the last 200, Robert. So again, that's my opinion. If you want to say he should have run more conservatively, that's his best path to goal. Okay. I can understand that, but I don't fault him.
That's not his style, but he's not going to run away from the front from the second fastest indoor performer in history. That's just not going to happen. I can say that I'm not a 160-pound distance nerd. I want to play in the NFL, but just because if I show up at the Ravens practice today, I'm still going to get destroyed. Like I can't just will it into existence. All right, let's talk about these women's races.
One more thing on this 800, though. I think also it shows the mental energy. I think there's mental energy Hoey had to deal with in this race that he didn't have to deal with at USA's. If you look at it, the splits are crazy. Like 400 to 500 at USA's was 13 flat. That's exactly what he ran here. 400 to 500, 13 flat. And then it was 0.2 slower and then 0.6 slower the last bit. So, that's where he starts losing more and more time. So to me, it wasn't like necessarily the speed, but he's like, oh my gosh, like mentally, I think I showed, like, would the pressure get to him? It's different when someone's challenging you. Like your body, I think, even if you're running even the same pace, like mentally, he's like tensing up a bit or something like that. And I think Miller, what he did, I thought maybe someone would try it earlier. It's like, if I want to win the race, I got to throw this guy off. I think that was what he did. It cost himself the thing, but Crestan and those guys gave them a chance. And John, let's real quickly before we get to these women's races. John says he doesn't root. You're telling me coming down that final straightaway, you're just sitting there impassionately, just sort of like, don't really care who wins this one.
The men's 800?
Yes.
100%. That's how I felt. I said this is an awesome race. It'd be fun if Hoey holds him off. It'd be fun if Crestan gets him. It would be fun if the Spanish guy who was making this big charge. But Weldon, I can tell you, I gave two shits who won that race.
It's amazing. That's why you're good at your job and good to have us, because I'm the voice of the fans. I'll say this. I did think one point, I'm like, God, if Jakob loses, because they were talking about how good Hauser. I didn't see the prelims at 6 a.m, wherever it was. So I was like, if Hauser somehow wins this, I'm like, well, at least the American wins. But then I was pleased in 800 because it's instinctive to me. Like I can't shoot. I'll turn on a sporting event instantly. I'll be rooting for somebody. Every sporting event I watch, I'm rooting for somebody. And to be honest, some of the Hoey, I don't know, the drug. I guess I'll be honest. The drug doubts that people had about this guy, like I didn't know that had been weighing on me. But when I was watching this race, I was rooting for Hoey. And I was like, come on, buddy, let's do it. And I was just like, okay, it's over. I'm a Hoey fan now. So I was happy about that. And all right, there's some interesting comments. Rose Runner wants to know, would Geordie Beamish of last year, sick kick, kicked out Ingebrigtsen? And then, it's kind of an interesting thought, but All in the Game points out that Ingebrigtsen closed in 150 today. Beamish closed in 152 last year. What was the winning time last year, by the way? I don't know, but look, just because let's say Beamish would have outkicked him and would have beaten Ingebrigtsen, that doesn't mean anything. So who cares? Beamish outkicked Cole Hawker. I mean,
3:36.5 was the winning time last year. And honestly, if Beamish is in the race and I'm Jakob, I'm running that differently. I'm not letting it go as slow as it did the first thing. I'm picking it up earlier and trying to drop him, because you don't want, if that guy can outkick Cole Hawker, you don't want him anywhere near you on the last lap.
But in a classic like 3:38 race, I mean, Jason Stewart said it best. Like Beamish, I mean, I might take Beamish over Kerr and Hawker consistently in that type of race. So that's not really a big knock on Jakob. He's not. I don't think he's dumb enough to just let it sit and kick with Geordie Beamish.
Jakob is I wouldn't say scared Geordie Beamish out of the event, but essentially he has run him out of the 1500 with the way he runs it, because the way it is now, you have to be able to run 328, 329 a championship final after 2-3 rounds of racing. I'm not sure Geordie Beamish can do that, but I do think what Jason said, I 100% agree with this. If this was 15 years ago, Geordie Beamish would be a consistent medal threat in global 1500 meter finals because of the way the event was run back then.
Well, that's not true, actually, though. That's not true. What's keeping Geordie Beamish out of the event is health. The guy's not raced all season. He can never stay healthy. He's the Dathan Ritzenheim of the 2025s. He's injured all the time. So, I mean, sorry to be harsh, but Weldon are injury prone a lot too. So when you're not healthy, it's hard to be a factor on the world scene. All right. What about, I guess we should turn to these women's races. I mean, the women's races, and I know Tsegay won the gold, but it's just, I've been talking about it, harping on it more in recent podcasts, and it's really struck me. Like, Americans are doing really well, and we're like, why aren't the Kenyans any good? And like they used to, dominant like they used to be. The Ethiopia, there's just, like, particularly in the middle distances on the men's side, there's not a lot from Africa going on right now. And the depth, and is it the doping and whatever? And the more I think about it and the more I watch about it, it's just like, I'm like, okay, it used to be a talent thing. Now it's not just a talent thing. It's technology, it's coaching, etc. And the tactics and and just the coaching, the lack of coaching in the middle distances is so obvious to me. And you saw it in both these women's races. And I the way I described it is, I was like, these are the type of races you used to see. I used to love going to Millrose when it was in the Garden. And I actually remember watching Kyle Merber race this high school race, and like in the mile and stuff. High schoolers, like, they have to have the lead at all times, and they have like 80 mid-race surges, and it's just back and forth, and it's just not. Pros are smart. You've got like one move, maybe two, and you just sit and kick, and you run smart, and you save ground, and then and you're smart about things. High schoolers run like idiots, and you don't even see that in the high school ranks in the U.S. anymore. Like the kids are smart. They know how to watch. They watch YouTube races, save your ground, kick in. These Ethiopians run worse than high schoolers did 20 years ago. The lack of tactics and the fact that these are professional athletes, some of the greatest athletes in history, is embarrassing to me. It's absolutely embarrassing. So the women's 1500 goes off. I know Tsegay is the world record holder, but do you really need to go out and what was it, 29 seconds?
And then 60.5 at 400. She was on world record pace in the mile. Like, well, I don't know what the 1500 pace was equivalent. I mean, certainly she had to be under 353 pace through 800, but she hit 800 in 2:03.44. Again, the world record in the women's mile is 4:07 outdoors. So I mean, Tsegay has always run a ridiculous first 400. That's just been her style essentially her entire time as a pro, and she has gotten some pretty good results out of it. Like, obviously she won this race and crushed everyone but she did that because she's way fitter, not because she ran this the most optimal way. But also, like, I don't know, when you are like, if you're 4 seconds fitter than someone right now, and you just say, all right, I'm just going to bury them and give them no hope and open up this huge gap. I mean, is there something to that, Robert? Or should she, could she have accomplished the same result by just going out in 62?
I think she could have accomplished the same result in going out in 62. And I just think in the future, like, fine, it worked today, but what's her plan going to be outdoors? I mean, this is a woman that she tripled at the Olympics, right? And just was horrendous. I mean, absolutely horrendous. And maybe she had her peak wrong, but that's the thing. Like, was she cooked physically, mentally? The tactics didn't help, but it worked today. But it's like, okay, you go out that fast and you fade to 354. You fade to 354. You're probably not even getting a medal outdoors anymore. It was so fast last year. But this was a woman that was 12th in the Paris Olympic 1500, 9th in the 5,000, 6th in the 10,000. I mean, I guess she's ambitious. She's goal, but there's just no tactics. It's just like run from the front. She's fast. If I was her, maybe I guess she is kind of a 10K runner. So maybe she's not going to be, she doesn't want it to be a tactical 1500. I get that. She's kind of like the Jakob. She needs it fast, but Jakob is at least learning, like, I've got to make the splits have got to be perfect. You have to have a sense of pace in the 800 and the 1500. And it looks like none of the Ethiopians have any sense of pace. So,
I mean, all right. I don't think we should criticize her that much. She did win the world title by more than 4 seconds. Like she was clearly way better than everyone else, and I think you got to give her some credit for that. Like,
well,
she
I
destroyed
guess,
everyone, Robert.
Right? Because, but on the post race, is it Hannah England Weldon? Who's on Peacock? Who's that Meadows? Who's doing that? The commentator was like, "What you highlight the championships?" Oh, she's like Tsegay running this amazing time. I was like, that race as a coach just annoyed me because I'm like, okay, what's the end game? Now maybe you want to gap the field so they have to come at you on their own. But anyways, she wins, and it was kind of interesting. The only people that tried to go with her was Teji.
The whistling's back. Please stop.
Teji of Ethiopia ends up in the silver 3:59.30, and then Georgie Griffith of Australia also went out hard and ended up getting 4 flat .80. Georgia Hunter Bell came from back and ends up getting a medal in an indoor PB of 3:59.84, and they kind of had the chase pack and whatever. I thought this was a disastrous performance for the Americans. If you told me, okay, 3:59. Teji's going to go out in 61. She's going to fade and run 3:59. I would have thought the Americans, both of them, would go 2-3 in this race. Like you go out in 64, and I guess in that sense it did work. Like Sinclair Johnson goes out in 64, Heather MacLean goes out in 64. They're in like 6th and 7th, 5th and 6th place in the middle of the pack, but I guess they would have to do the work themselves. They're used to sort of sitting in the pack and letting the Ellie St. Pierre's, the better runners, set the pace, and they can just ride the train to a 3:56, 3:57, whatever it is. It looks like they can't push the pace to catch that group and run it. I guess they could have just followed Hunter Bell up there.
They basically did. They were at the tail end of Hunter Bell's. They were at the tail end of that Georgia Hunter Bell group, Robert, and they just got dropped when the pace got, the last couple of laps. Like, yeah, total utter disaster for Sinclair Johnson and Heather MacLean. And Heather MacLean ran 3:59, the American indoor record, 3 weeks ago, and that would have gotten a medal today. Now, obviously, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to bank on that performance every single time," but I think a medal was gettable, and they were at a loss to explain it. I think both of them expected a lot more out of each other, or out of themselves, going to this race. They're basically, look, I didn't have it tonight. That was essentially their explanation. They didn't really know the race had just happened. But they're like, didn't feel great. I should have been better. It wasn't, and they were kind of at a loss to explain it. But yeah, if you told me, okay, Tsegay's just going to crush everyone, but then there's going to be a battle with a few other women in the 3:59 for the silver and bronze, I would have been like, all right, I think the Americans, they've shown, I think Heather MacLean certainly has shown she's in shape to run around that. And Sinclair beat her at USA's. I think they would have liked their chances of being in that mix, and they just were not. They were total non-factors in the end. So no way to frame this other than just a horrendous race for them.
Yeah, they were such non-factors, John. Like Robert's like, oh, why didn't they just pace it better, essentially? No, they had the perfect pack. They were with Georgia Hunter Bell, 208 at 800. Like this was perfectly set up for them to run sub-4. 208 sub-4 minute pace. They just literally didn't have it. And then afterwards, you're like, wait, why weren't they up there? Like, oh, the first girls were out too fast, and they were sort of a no woman's land.
Well,
but that didn't happen.
There was a post on Let's Run. Someone's like, I hate to say this, but if you're not one of the top 4 women in this race, you should be embarrassed by your performance. And I kind of had to agree. But, I was pleased that, Sinclair's in a new setup. She was talking, she's pleased about her fitness. She thinks she's in 3:56. So it's not a big deal for them because they've got contracts, whatever. If you think about like biggest winners and losers, like imagine if, and I was thinking like, well, what if Shelby Houlihan had been in the race? She might have gotten another medal. But like for Shelby, this was a big meet for her. She's a huge winner for me because she comes in, she gets the medal, she's going to get a contract at some point. If she comes in here and lays a goose egg like Sinclair and them, and then Sinclair and Heather to get medals, you're like, well, why would I want to sponsor Shelby Houlihan? Like, too controversial. She's not doing anything. Like after 4 years in the wilderness, that last lap was big for her. I was wondering, is she going to fade out of the medal? No, she went from 3rd to silver. So, big for her.
Yeah, and I don't think we should just, overall, Sinclair Johnson and Heather MacLean, I think there's a lot of positives for them from this indoor season. This was one bad race, but I think they both ran well at USA's. MacLean obviously got the American record.
You and Weldon are
Johnson's
guys
in a good
like
setup.
we're trying to get these runners like approvals and not rip them. Like, I know Stephen A. Smith and like ESPN jackasses like are always criticizing people, but like when the Ravens choke in the playoffs every year because they self-destruct, like the media is allowed to say they self-destruct. Like this was not a good performance, and like I don't need to sugarcoat it anymore.
I don't think I minced words with that, Robert. I said this was a complete and utter disaster for them, but I'm just saying, like, it's a bad race. It happens. It happened at the wrong moment for them, but it's not like they're just out of shape or like they made dumb decisions. They kind of just bombed, and I don't know exactly why.
Okay, let's turn to the women's 800. If we're talking about tactics or lack thereof, at the first, I'm gonna find the official split here. The first 200 meters was running 20. This is the women's 800. 26.
Also, whoever's doing the timing splits on the World Athletics, I don't know if you're looking at this as well, Robert, but there's the live commentator information system in the 800. They're giving us splits every 20 meters. No one on earth needs to know the 20-meter splits. Maybe Justin Rinaldi wants them, but pretty much no one needs to know 20-meter splits for an 800-meter race. So just keep it simple moving forward.
No, I'm on the printed out splits, which show 100, 200, 26.6 first 200, 55.8 first 400. I mean, that was Getachew of Ethiopia. She did hold on to actually get the silver medal in 159.63, but it's a hard way to run it. 55 and then basically 64, I guess 63 and change. And I mean, Prudence Sagadiso of South Africa, I think it was their first gold. She wins it. I mean, she went out just behind them. So she did go out hard herself. It wasn't like she was brilliantly tactically inside. I'm going to hold off. She goes 56.2 and then 62.1 for 158.40. It was a world leader, much deserved gold. Like, look, people have not been running this fast. That's a hard way to run it. But I was like, they were John nailed it. Like, go by if you didn't watch this race, find it on YouTube. Get the VPN that we use. Let's run.com/VPN. You can see all these races on the NBC YouTube channel. And then they were absolutely sprinting at the 100-meter mark. Like it looked like it was almost all out. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you should never be in that much distress in an 800 until the last 50 meters. And it did not work well for Daguma. With a lap to go, it's just like, oh my God, is she even going to finish? And she ends up running her last 200 meters. She was still in third at the bell. She ends up running her last 200 meters in 37 seconds, runs 2:04.74 for last. So Sagadiso gold, Getachew of Ethiopia silver, and then Silva of Portugal gets the bronze. The top four women all broke 2 minutes. As a fan, I was really disappointed that Nia Akins got tripped yesterday. I would have loved to have seen what she would have done, and it would have been really interesting because everyone likes to go out near the front in the 800. So what would Nia do? Would she have sensed that? Does she go out in 58 and just come home in 59 and win it? Or does she go too fast and then also slow down? We'll never know.
Yeah. No, watching this, I was like, wait a minute. How does Sekodiso hold on so well when she was only a little bit slower than the Ethiopians at 400? But I do also think if you look at the way Daguma ran that opening lap, one, she was sprinting off the break, and two, she ran extra distance. Sekodiso, when she was getting out hard, but she kind of tucked in on the rail, and Daguma was running, lane one, outer edge of lane one into lane two part of the time, and came through and ran 26 seconds. So she put a lot more effort, I think, into that 26 than Sekodiso did. And yeah, totally torpedoed her own race. But yeah, props to Sekodiso for holding on. And like you, Robert, I have a feeling that Nia Akins would have gotten a medal. I'm not sure if it would have been gold, but I'm pretty confident she would have cracked the top three in this race.
In some ways, Daguma blowing up, I was like, okay, there's I don't know. It made me sort of be refreshed. I'm like, okay, these people aren't superhuman because the splits were so crazy. Like you said, John, I'm sort of shocked that For Prudence to run 158 like this and get a gold medal, I thought it was a really impressive run. I mean, she was an Olympic finalist last year, but like, and for Nia Akins, yes, it would have been great for her to be in there. That race yesterday, people didn't miss it, or 2 days ago, yesterday, right? She fell down, hopped up, and almost still made the final. I mean, it was crazy. It's an 800. It's not a 1500, not a 3K. You know, that's where people can fall down and come back. So it would have been nice to see her there, but you know, I think the times, because the times were so slow in all the qualifying heats, this ended up being a really good race. I mean, despite these splits and whatever, like, you know, the top 4 all go sub 2. Like they're running 204s in the prelims and semis, which was crazy.
Yeah, well then, for reference for how slow and how badly Tsegay Daguma tied up on that last lap, 37 seconds. I mean, it's nuts. But Nia Akins fell down and ran a faster time in the semifinal while falling than Tsegay Daguma did today in the final.
Daguma was the world leader coming in. She was the only woman at 158 on the year. Not a great year for the women's 8 indoors. Only 7 women broke 2 minutes. Last year it was 11. But, you know, it'd be interesting to see what happens outdoors. I mean, is Athing Mu going to do anything? She just got married. Let's hope she gets focused. Keely's coming off an injury. I mean, I think that you got Mary Moraa of Kenya, but I don't know. I'm just suddenly bullish on Nia Akins all of a sudden. Which
Robert, come on.
6 weeks ago.
I'm surprised Robert's doubting Athing Mu. Like, his whole strategy on women's running and men's running is when women are in an established relationship, they run really well, and men do really well when they're on the prowl. So Athing Mu is back. She'll probably break the world record this year, according to that theory, Robert. I'm surprised you're even doubting her.
Well, the reason to doubt Athing Mu, I mean, obviously, when she's on the track, she almost always performs. I mean, last year she clearly wasn't healthy, but the reason why there's doubts, Weldon, is because this woman never races. We don't know what she's up to. She pops up and runs a few races and then disappears. And, you know, we see like, I'll see, like, the biggest updates I get from her is some pictures on someone's Instagram that she's at a practice with Bobby Kersey. And it's like, oh, okay, she appears to be training, we think, you know, and she is so amazing that when she shows up, you know, you have to take her seriously. But that's why there's questions, is because she doesn't run indoors. She doesn't really run a lot outdoors. So that's why.
Someone's saying she's pregnant. I don't know if that's true or not. It actually would be a good time to have a child because
Robert, why are you just throwing that on the chat? We have no idea if that's true or not. Like, you just,
I didn't say it was true, and I didn't put it in the chat, so blame Weldon. But
someone did. That's just total gossip rumor. You don't know that at all.
You youngsters that don't have children, I'm happy to talk about this. If she actually wanted to have a family, this would be a smart time to have it. Because first of all, because of all the thanks to the waves that were made several years ago, there is now maternity leave for runners, and they still get paid. And then you'd be able to have a child in time and come back for the LA Olympics. But I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just saying that, like, wow, if I was her, you just got married, this would be a good time to do it, because one thing that young people don't want to hear is you can't have it all in life. You can't. So if you want to have a biological child of your own as a professional woman athlete, you've got a limited time to do that. So, and your fertility greatly declines once you're over 35. And so I can do it later. Well, maybe not. So just, I don't think I would not have put that chat onto the show, but someone put it in YouTube, and that's what some people are thinking. So we shall see.
No, I'm the one who put it on the screen. I have no evidence that she's pregnant or something, but like, if somebody getting pregnant recently, right after getting married, that is one route that people go. Other people are, more measured and like, oh, we'll be married a couple years and have a kid. But I think probably the other most common scenario is people have a kid right away. So it's something I hadn't even thought about. But that's the thing. When these runners are out there performing at their best, you never know, for whatever reason, how long it's going to last. Athing Mu has a gift from God. What she didn't, like Tokyo. I mean, think about all the timing, right? The year before, like, no one had essentially heard of her. the Olympics are when they're supposed to be, no COVID. Like, she's not the Olympic champion, but thankfully she's the Olympic champion. Hopefully she can get back to that form.
They're saying in the chat that Let's Not Get Today had a child last month. That's interesting if true, because I was asking her agent in New York. I said, "What's up? Like, this is the Olympics. She shouldn't race at all." And he didn't say she's pregnant. Like, he said, "Oh, it's a personal." He wouldn't say. So to me, this is the problem with the sport. People speculate when you don't provide any updates. Like, okay, Gudaf is one of the greatest runners of all time. It's an Olympic year, and like, there's no expectation of like, okay. Of addressing the media. John has reached out to Athing Mu's camp on many occasions and never received a response. So,
that's true. And Robert, though, I do think that her agent may have been fairly preoccupied in the last few months because he was the one who negotiated Jamar Chase and T. Higgins' massive contract extensions with the Bengals. Yes, they have the same agent, and he's like the head of this agency. Rocky Arsenault is Jamar Chase's agent and T. Higgins' agent. So I can maybe understand if he's, his email's he's a little busy, but it would be nice to hear an update from one of the most, talented, decorated, famous American runners on, is she alive? Is she training? Is she running, any races anytime soon? How's the injury coming?
But, I enjoyed this meet. Thank God Jakob came. Because if he didn't, then I wouldn't have enjoyed this meet. People are like, how can we get people to show up this meet? Track doesn't need more meets. It needs more meets that matters. And, we were getting text, John, from some of the guys at NCAA. It's like, the beginning of this meet, like, NCAA indoors is better than this meet. And some events, it might actually maybe be a little bit better. But what makes NCAA special is, everyone's going to be there. Every college athlete's going to be there. No one skipped it. And when one or two people skip an event, it takes the luster off. I wish the shoe companies would care about the sport and then just instead of just the brand. And they don't really care about the fans at all. They just care about having a few pretty faces to put in their goddamn marketing ads to people who don't pay attention to it, who aren't really fans of professional track and field. I mean, and that's the majority of the people buying the shoes, because I swim at Michael Phelps's pool. There's no mention of Michael Phelps. There's not even a picture of him on the goddamn wall. He used to actually own the facility when he owned it, apparently. So maybe it's a marketing thing, but it's like, wow, you think they'd be hyping this up, but no, the average person is just trying to lose weight and stay in shape and, be healthy when they're old. And they don't care that Athing Mu or Cole Hawker blew off World Indoors.
But speaking of World Indoors, and Robert, I'm just going to say this. I don't know if this came across in the broadcast. The back straight, there were a lot of empty seats tonight. I would say it was maybe 2/3 full or something.
Look, doesn't bother me. I was happy that it was in a small stadium. Did not look bad to me. I enjoyed it on TV. I was going to ask you what the atmosphere was, but
the atmosphere was, whenever Chinese athletes were in the events, they were doing okay. It was actually pretty interesting in the men's 4x4. There were only 5 teams, so China was in third. Whenever China was in third to get the bronze medal, the crowd was really into it and very loud. As soon as they slipped back to fourth and got passed by Hungary, got really quiet. So they were just like, they really wanted a Chinese medal, didn't quite get it. But yeah, they definitely cheered hard for the Chinese athletes. But no, I'm sorry. This is not a big arena. It was like 2,200 seats. This is the final session. It's all finals. You've got Jakob. You've got the 800s and the 1500s. For them to just have this big patch of empty seats on the back straight, not really a great look, honestly. You would think the whole idea of having it in China, one, obviously, it's going to be well supported financially in terms of like local government input. They're going to move mountains to make sure this thing happens. But two, you would hope, like, you're trying to grow track and field in China and access this Asian market. And that it's not a great sign when you can't even get a sellout for the final session of the World Indoor Championships. It's just not.
In a tiny arena, John, tiny. But as Robert said, visually, it wasn't that bad. The first thing is, like, don't look bad on TV. This didn't look bad on TV.
Look,
but if this is a 5,000 seat arena, it looks embarrassing. So, Robert, hold on. I'm speaking.
It's amazing to me. Like, we're sending you to China. We're debating this like it's a professional sport. We're the only ones that treat it as a professional sport. Everyone, even the New York Roadrunners, basically treat it as like a charity event now. Like, it's embarrassing to me that we'll be happy if we get 1,000 live viewers in one of these shows through Instagram, X, YouTube, Facebook, etc. Like, to me, we just had the world, and no one else is breaking this down. We should have 100,000 people minimum on this show right now. Like, the sport is tiny.
Wait,
tiny.
we should have 100,000 people listening to the Let'sRun.com Track Talk podcast right now.
John, if this was a big sport and you had if it was a Super Bowl and like people would the soccer streams, like there's a guy who just talks over the Manchester United game. He gets 100,000 people like watching his YouTube stream. I understand Robert's point, but also you're criticizing athletes for not showing up, for shoe companies for not showing up. Excuse me. Tim Seeley has a great comment here, or no, I guess Justin Taylor's agreeing with Tim Seeley. There needs to be more incentive for athletes, either financially or buys at nationals, worlds, or Olympics. It's embarrassing to have this many athletes skipping a world championships. I agree. World athletics somehow needs to create a better incentive structure for people to get there, to get the stars to compete at their events. Now they get them at the worlds and the Olympics because so much is tied into that, but like in indoor worlds, that isn't there. So figure it out. And related to that, John, the world, what have they shown? They've shown that their first priority is the guaranteed check where they put these events. You're going to get the guaranteed check at a lot of these authoritarian governments where the government will back the bid. So, San Diego, not enough signups for the World Half. Boom, let's pull it out. Presumably, they already have someone else lined up. They just haven't announced it yet. So I think there is some stuff that World Athletics could do better. But also big picture, any other events we want to talk about today? The U.S. sweeps the 4x4s. There's not really, to me, there wasn't
the
much.
4x4s were there were 5 teams in there. I mean, it was kind of a joke about this indoors because, I mean, the Netherlands, they kind of had their Super Bowl at Euro indoors. They've kind of been the other power other than the US. If they send their A team over here, yeah, it's going to be fun. But they didn't. Is there anything else I want to hit? No, I think I got to get working on some of these post-race articles. But in terms of, in terms of incentives, I'm sorry, I don't think there's that much World Athletics can actually do to force people to show up to World Indoors. I think that's quite difficult for them. Really, it's the shoe companies that hold the power here because they're the ones giving the athletes their biggest checks. If they start putting bonuses in contracts or requirements in contracts saying, if healthy, you must try out for the U.S. World Indoor team in World Indoor years. If they start doing stuff like that, then you're going to see a change. But I can't think of like something that World Athletics can really do, something that they can take away to force athletes to run World Indoors.
$250,000 for the winners every event. How about something like that, John?
Okay, that's nice if money just grew on trees, but it's got to come from somewhere.
And then only the top people show up for that because they can't win it. Like, I don't know. But I did say it. Harrison Fraser's got the same take as me. I said Grand Slam track's going to end up just watering down World Indoors. And definitely.
Well, I think the great hypothetical is how much did it water it down? How many of these athletes that have said they're focusing on Grand Slam track would have flown over to run this meet in China instead? I'm not convinced that many of them would have. Obviously, it hurt.
Huge time break. There's a huge time break between this and Outdoor World. So I think that you would have had a lot.
It seems to only affect the men's 1500 really much. Those guys, like, it's not a lot of sprinters who missed out. Christian Coleman's not running Grand Slam track. He didn't do World Indoors this year. That sort of stuff. And so I think it was pretty small, actually, to be honest.
There are some athletes who are doing both. Jessica Hull's doing both. Neil Gorley, who got the silver medal in this meet, he's doing the first Grand Slam track. Like, there are athletes, I think a number of 3K, 5K women for the first Grand Slam. Whitney Orton is doing it. Heather McLean's doing it. She ran the 1500. Like, there are a bunch of athletes who are doing both. But if you're really gunning for that, like if you're Cole Hawker and Josh Kerr and Yara Naguse and you're in that loaded event, I can kind of look. They're thinking, these guys are absolute studs. I got to be on my A game if I'm going to be competitive with them. I don't want to go to China and run a meet where I've already got a medal from last year. I want to really focus and make sure I'm ready to go at this Grand Slam. So I can understand their thinking on that. And actually, speaking of Grand Slam, I asked Jakob about this. I was like, are you going to do it? And if not, why not? And he didn't say no, but it was basically a no. Like, it doesn't look like he's going to do it this year. And, he's talking about wanting to have freedom over his schedule. And, like, there's a period you need to be training. And essentially, I think he just wants to go back to training for a few months here before he starts racing again outdoors. And, there are 2 Grand Slam track meets in the next month and a half. So that's why I don't think he wanted to commit to them. But I do think it's fair. He's somewhat talking out of both sides of his mouth here, because remember after the Olympics last year, he was praising Cole Hawker and these other guys for showing up and racing him. He praised Hocker for showing up and racing him in Lausanne, and then he was like glad they ran at Zurich. He's always like, I think the best guys should be racing more often. He knows where the best guys in his event are going to be 4 times this year, and I get that all these mates are in North America, but if he wants a piece of them, he knows where they're going to be.
John,
So what?
you say that he may be at Diamond Leagues and they may not be there, but they will also be there, and they'll be racing a secondary event that means nothing, and the money's determined on that. So it's not a pure 1500, John, and that's why a lot of other athletes have said they're skipping Grand Slam track. The whole doubling system. Michael Johnson loved the double. We should go back to calling this the Michael Johnson Track League. There's more 200s and 400s run at this thing than any other event. Michael Johnson's fingerprints are all over this thing. I still think we're going to find out real quickly. I think the doubling thing is a good thing.
We know Jakob's going to be a pre. Is Joe going to show up at pre?
I hope so. It's the week after the last Grand Slam, but I hope so.
All right, John, we do want to thank you. I think we should get out of here. I wanted to go for 45 minutes. We've done an hour. You've got some recaps. Seriously, you've done an amazing job. I've really enjoyed I've been on vacation this week, waking up and just everything. You recapped all the events in perfect fashion. Like you had the interviews. I don't know how you talk. Like I was actually wondering, like John said, he missed the women's 800. Like, do they have TVs in the mix zone, John, so you can actually watch the races when you're interviewing people?
They do. It's a good mix zone. So I was talking to Jakob, and we were in the side. That actually end of the mix zone doesn't have TVs.
John, the hardest worker in track and field. He's NCAAs last week, World Indoors this week, Jamaica next week. John, go home, take some time off. I'll make some controversial comments on the podcast without you.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Yeah, I'll see you guys back when I'm stateside, but I got a little work to do. Got to catch the shuttle. Thanks everyone for tuning in. All the
can I
Sports
just
Club
say one
members,
thing?
thank you for your support because that helps send us to these meets.
Is this? Well, I'm glad we sent you because you got all the exclusive no one else had. Although nothing goes viral anymore. It's to push. Like we used to get YouTube interviews to get like 20,000 views. Now it's like YouTube's the algorithm's dead. But I would say one thing as someone that used to think like I know how to coach, I just don't have the athletes. Was this meet a disaster for all those quote unquote pro coaches? Like Shelby Houlihan wins a medal coaching by herself. And then like these basically equivalent of high school coaches, Justin Rinaldi and Mike Scannell, like just rock this thing. And this supposedly
How is Justin Rinaldi a high school coach? He's been coaching pros for years.
I know, but he's not some Nike coach. He's just some dude that coached people like on the side of his job.
I just think that's proof there are a lot of good coaches out there if you know where to find them. There's a lot of good coaches in the NCAA, which I think is why it's a great talent development system. But I think Justin Rinaldi's a great coach. I think Mike Scannell's a great coach. And I thought that before this meet, but that, the results out there show it even more. All right. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Let'sRun.com/subscribe. If you're listening now and you want more like this, we do a bonus podcast every week. We always go live after these major events and World Indoors. We still consider that a major event at Let'sRun.com. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with a regular podcast.
One little point. Robert said stuff doesn't go viral. No, people aren't interested in World Indoors, generally speaking. We are. The people watching right now are, but some stuff does rack up a lot of views. But we appreciate all you guys. John, try to get some sleep. Tuesday we'll have probably a bigger picture podcast, with ability to think back. Who are the biggest winners, losers, World Indoors? Near misses, Sam Gilman. He's probably now thinking like, oh man, maybe I should have gotten that medal. All right.